Eleanor, after 13 years with Nexus Corp, we are restructuring your position, said Vivian Rogers, her voice carrying a hint of satisfaction she couldn't quite conceal. I sat across from her in the sterile conference room, watching as she exchanged glances with Thomas from Human Resources. Both wore those carefully practiced expressions of corporate sympathy that never quite reached the eyes. The company is moving in a new direction, Thomas added, sliding a folder across the polished table. Your contributions have been valuable, but we're integrating the research division under product development. I nodded thoughtfully, accepting the folder without opening it. I already knew what it contained. Standard severance package, 2 weeks pay for each year of service, health coverage for 90 days, and career counseling resources I'd never use. I understand completely, I replied, keeping my voice steady. Many would expect a 52-year-old woman being pushed out of the tech industry to break down or lash out. They'd be disappointed. Relief visibly washed over their faces. They'd clearly anticipated tears or anger, not this calm acceptance. What they didn't know was that I'd seen this coming weeks ago, when a misdirected email thread landed in my inbox, outlining the restructuring plans in clinical corporate language. We'd like you to clear out your desk by Friday, Vivian continued, growing more confident with my apparent acceptance. We'll need your security badge, laptop, and company phone before you leave. Your team will be notified this afternoon. My team. 7 brilliant engineers I'd personally recruited and mentored over the years. The same team that helped me develop the distributed data architecture algorithm, now powering Nexus Corp's flagship product, DataSphere financial management software, used by nearly half of the Fortune 500 companies. Of course, I said, rising from my chair. Is there anything else? They exchanged glances, clearly thrown by my composure. Vivian recovered first. That's all for now. Thank you for handling this professionally. As I walked back to my office, I passed the glass-walled executive conference room where CEO Martin Campbell was gesturing animatedly at a PowerPoint presentation titled Q3 Revenue Projections. The same Martin Campbell who had taken sole credit for my algorithm at last year's Tech Summit, referring to me only as one of our research staff members. I closed my office door and pulled out my personal phone, sending a single text. It's happening. Friday is my last day. The response came immediately. Perfect timing. Contracts are ready. Dinner tonight to finalize details. I smiled as I glanced at my desk calendar. Today was Wednesday. Friday I would leave Nexus Corp for the last time. And Monday would be fascinating. That evening, I met Julian Reeves at Sapphire, an upscale restaurant far from Nexus Corp's headquarters. As the CEO of Quantum Dynamics, Nexus Corp's largest competitor, Julian understood the value of discretion. He'd reserved a private dining alcove shielded by elegant, decorative screens. They actually went through with it, Julian said, shaking his head after we ordered. I suspected they might, but to cut loose the very person who developed their core technology. Martin never truly understood what I created, I replied, sipping my water. He saw the implementation, the user interface, the marketing potential, but the underlying architecture. That was just in tech stuff to him. The irony was almost perfect. 3 months ago, I discovered the patent application for my distributed data architecture algorithm had never been filed by Nexus Corp's legal team. When I inquired, they claimed it was an oversight they'd handle immediately. Something about their response felt off, prompting me to dig deeper into the company's internal documentation. That's when I found it, a strategy memo outlining plans to claim the algorithm as company-developed technology without specific inventor attribution. They'd planned to push me out before securing the patent, knowing intellectual property developed by employees typically belonged to the company. What Nexus Corp didn't know was that I'd been working on significant improvements to the algorithm on my own time using my personal equipment. Those enhancements, which increased processing efficiency by 47%, weren't covered by my employment agreement. I'd quietly filed for a patent under my own name last month, fully documented with timestamps and development logs clearly showing the work was completed outside company time. The patent had been granted with remarkable speed, thanks to Julian's introduction to a top intellectual property attorney. All the paperwork is finalized, Julian said, sliding a folder across the table. As soon as you sign, Quantum Dynamics officially acquires exclusive licensing rights to your patent. The press release goes out Monday morning announcing you as our new Chief Innovation Officer. I reviewed the documents carefully, though I'd already memorized the key terms: a substantial signing bonus, equity in quantum dynamics, and ongoing royalties from all products using my algorithm. What do you think Martin's face will look like when he realizes what's happened? Julian asked, unable to hide his satisfaction. I'm more concerned about my team, I admitted. They don't deserve to be caught in the fallout. Julian nodded. Already addressed. We have positions for all 7 of them, if they're interested. Senior roles with significant raises. I signed the final page and closed the folder. In one elegant move, I had secured my future, protected my team, and ensured recognition for my work. To new beginnings, Julian said, raising his glass. And to owning your own value, I added, clinking my glass against his. Thursday and Friday passed in a blur of exit interviews, knowledge transfer meetings, and goodbyes to colleagues. I maintained my professional composure throughout, even as rumors spread across the company. Administrative assistants gave me sympathetic glances in hallways. Junior developers approached awkwardly, asking if I'd provide LinkedIn recommendations before I left. I documented everything meticulously, every project, password, and process, knowing full well that Nexus Corp would soon discover just how thorough they needed me to be. My decision to leave comprehensive transition notes wasn't kindness, it was evidence. Evidence that I had acted in good faith while the company had not. During my final exit interview on Friday afternoon, Thomas from HR went through the standard checklist with mechanical efficiency. You understand that any intellectual property developed during your employment remains the property of Nexus Corp, he stated, pushing a non-disclosure agreement across the table. Of course, I replied pleasantly. Anything developed within the scope of my employment, using company resources, during company time. I emphasized those qualifiers slightly, but Thomas was too busy checking boxes to notice. And you affirm you have no copies of proprietary company information. I have taken nothing that belongs to Nexus Corp, I confirmed truthfully. The patent was mine, after all. As I packed personal items from my desk, family photos, conference badges marking 13 years of industry events, the coffee mug my team had given me last Christmas, Vivian stopped by, leaning against my doorframe with artificial casualness. I just wanted to check that everything's clear for your departure, she said, watching me place items into a cardboard box. Crystal clear, I replied, carefully wrapping a small award I'd received for the very algorithm now at the center of my plans. The irony wasn't lost on me as I placed it between layers of tissue paper. You know, Eleanor, these restructuring decisions are never personal, Vivian continued. Martin feels the company needs to move in a more youthful direction. I looked up, meeting her gaze directly. I understand completely. Business is business. Something in my tone made her pause. For a brief moment, uncertainty flickered across her face, but she quickly dismissed it. What could a soon-to-be unemployed 52-year-old woman possibly do? Will you be taking some time off? She asked with an artificial note of concern. Actually, I already have something lined up. I start Monday. Surprise crossed her features. That's fast. Anything interesting? I smiled. Very. A leadership position I'm quite excited about. She nodded absently, already mentally moving on to other matters. Well, good luck with that. As I walked out of Nexus Corp's glass headquarters for the final time, security badge surrendered and personal belongings in tow, I took a moment to look back at the building where I'd spent 13 years of my career. On the top floor, I could see the executive conference room lit up for an evening meeting, likely discussing how to redistribute my responsibilities among younger, less experienced, and significantly less expensive staff. Little did they know that in less than 72 hours, that same room would be hosting an emergency crisis meeting instead. Monday morning dawned bright and clear. I dressed carefully in my new Navy suit, a power outfit I'd purchased specifically for this day. The Quantum Dynamics town car arrived precisely at 7:30 a.m. to take me to their headquarters, where I'd start my first day as Chief Innovation Officer. The press release went live at 7 a.m., Julian informed me as I settled into my new corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows. Industry newsletters are already picking it up. I've got the communications team monitoring reactions. The announcement had been crafted with strategic precision. Quantum Dynamics acquires exclusive rights to revolutionary processing algorithm. Welcomes creator Dr. Eleanor Chen as Chief Innovation Officer. It detailed my background, emphasized my role as the sole inventor of the patented technology, and outlined how quantum dynamics would be integrating the algorithm into their next generation of products. Most importantly, it clearly stated that any company currently using the technology would need to negotiate licensing agreements with quantum dynamics moving forward. At precisely 9:15 a.m., my phone lit up with the first text from my former team at Nexus Corp. Complete chaos here. What did you do? It was from Raj, my lead developer. I smiled, typing back, check your personal email. All 7 of you have offers waiting. Meanwhile, 8 miles away at Nexus Corp headquarters, the scheduled Monday morning executive meeting was undergoing a dramatic transformation. According to Raj's play-by-play updates throughout the morning, Martin had arrived at the office to find the company's general counsel and chief financial officer waiting at his door, both ashen-faced. The industry announcement had hit their inboxes simultaneously, setting off immediate alarms. By 9:30 a.m., what should have been a routine start of week meeting had morphed into an emergency crisis session. Board members were calling in remotely. The legal team was frantically reviewing my employment contract and the documentation around the algorithm's development. They're pulling every file with your name on it, Raj reported. Someone just wheeled in all the servers from the research division for the tech team to analyze. I could picture the scene perfectly. Martin pacing the conference room, demanding explanations from Vivian and the legal department. The stock would already be responding to the news. Investors hated uncertainty, and the announcement had created plenty of it. At 10:45 a.m., I received an email from Martin himself, the desperation practically emanating from my screen. Eleanor, there appears to be a misunderstanding. Please call me at your earliest convenience to discuss. I forwarded it to Quantum Dynamics' legal team without responding. By noon, the industry was buzzing with speculation. Nexus Corp's stock had dropped 8% since the market opened, while Quantum Dynamics had seen a 14% increase. 3 different technology journals had requested interviews with me about the strategic coup that had shaken the financial software industry. How are you feeling? Julian asked, stopping by my office as I settled in. Validated, the first replied honestly. 13 years of watching others take credit for my work, of being told I should be grateful just to have a seat at the table. And now, finally, recognition. My new executive assistant appeared at the door. Dr. Chen, the development team is ready for you in the main conference room. And, she hesitated, Nexus Corp's CEO has called 4 times in the last hour. Please let him know I'm in meetings all day, I replied calmly. I'll have our legal team reach out to discuss licensing options later this week. As I walked toward my first meeting as Chief Innovation Officer, my phone buzzed with another update from Raj. Board just called emergency session. Martin looks like he's about to explode. P.S. My team and I accept your offer. When can we start? By Tuesday morning, the full impact of my departure had become clear to everyone at Nexus Corp. Their flagship product, DataSphere, relied entirely on my algorithm to process the massive datasets that gave it an edge over competitors. Without licensing rights to my patent, they faced 2 equally unpalatable options: negotiate with Quantum Dynamics or rebuild their core technology from scratch, a process that would take years and millions in development costs. Martin has called an all-hands meeting for 2 p.m., Raj texted. It was his last day at Nexus Corp. He and the rest of my former team would be starting at Quantum Dynamics next Monday. Rumor is they're going to try to sue you. I forwarded his message to our legal department, who responded almost immediately. Let them try. Your documentation is impeccable development logs, timestamps, personal equipment usage, all clearly established. We've prepared for this scenario. Meanwhile, I was settling into my new role with remarkable ease. The respect I received at Quantum Dynamics was a stark contrast to my final years at Nexus Corp. When I spoke in meetings, people actually listened. My ideas weren't repackaged by male colleagues and presented as their own. My age and experience were viewed as assets rather than liabilities. The engineering team is implementing your efficiency improvements, Julian informed me during our afternoon briefing. Early testing shows a 53% performance boost, even better than we projected. I had several refinements I never shared with Nexus Corp, I admitted. After I discovered they were planning to eliminate my position, I saw no reason to give them my best work. Their loss, our gain, Julian replied with a satisfied smile. Speaking of which, the first licensing inquiry came in this morning. Not from Nexus Corp yet, they're still in denial, but from Dataflow Systems. They're worried about being caught in the crossfire. At 3:30 p.m., Raj sent a detailed account of Martin's all-hands meeting. The CEO had tried to project confidence, assuring the staff that Nexus Corp would vigorously defend our proprietary technology, but the anxiety in the room had been palpable. Several employees had already updated their LinkedIn profiles, sensing the company's vulnerability. Vivian looked like she was about to faint when someone asked directly if they'd failed to secure the patent, Raj reported. Martin cut the question period short after that. By Wednesday, the industry fallout had intensified. 2 major clients had contacted Quantum Dynamics about switching from DataSphere, concerned about Nexus Corp's ability to maintain the product without the algorithm's creator. Our stock had risen another 9%, while Nexus Corp continued its decline. I received a call from Thomas in HR, the same man who had slid my severance package across the table just days earlier. "Eleanor," he began, his voice carefully professional, "I'm calling to discuss the situation with your patent. We believe there may have been a misunderstanding about ownership rights." "I don't think there's any misunderstanding," I replied calmly. "My employment agreement clearly states that intellectual property developed on my own time using my own resources remains mine. The patent documentation confirms exactly that. Martin was hoping you might consider coming in to discuss options. Any discussions would need to go through Quantum Dynamics' legal department now," I responded. "I'm sure they'd be happy to set up a meeting to discuss licensing terms." The silence on the other end spoke volumes. Finally, Thomas sighed. "I'll pass that along." That afternoon, I led my first formal presentation to Quantum Dynamics' board of directors, outlining our technology roadmap with my algorithm at its center. As I stood confidently at the head of the table, not hidden in the back, as I had been at Nexus Corp, I caught Julian's approving nod. By Friday, just 1 week after I had walked out of Nexus Corp for the last time, the company had entered full crisis mode. Their stock had fallen 25% from Monday's opening bell, triggering concerned calls from major investors. Industry analysts were publishing speculative pieces with titles like "Can Nexus Corp survive the algorithm crisis?" and "How one strategic blunder may cost a tech giant everything." Through my industry contacts, I learned that Martin had finally acknowledged the severity of the situation to the board. Nexus Corp would need to either license my algorithm from Quantum Dynamics, likely at exorbitant rates that would devastate their profit margins, or undertake a complete rebuild of DataSphere without using any technology covered by my patent. They've started interviewing for a new development team, Raj informed me during our Friday video call, where we discussed his upcoming transition to Quantum Dynamics. Martin's claiming they can recreate the functionality in 6 months. I couldn't help but laugh. The original algorithm took me 3 years to perfect, and that was with intimate knowledge of the problem space. "Exactly," Raj agreed. "Nobody's believing the timeline, especially after your team posted their resignation letters simultaneously. The knowledge drain is massive." That afternoon, Nexus Corp's attorneys finally reached out to Quantum Dynamics to open a dialogue about potential licensing arrangements. Our legal team, following the strategy we had developed, responded with terms that were technically fair, but strategically painful. 3 times the standard industry licensing rate, plus a public acknowledgement of my role as the technology's inventor. "They'll balk at the acknowledgement more than the cost," Julian predicted, as we reviewed the response in his office. Martin's ego won't allow him to admit he pushed out the person who created their core technology. "Then they'll have to rebuild," I replied. "And every day they spend trying to replicate my work is another day we extend our lead in the market." The following Monday morning, 10 days after my unceremonious dismissal, I led the first meeting with my newly assembled innovation team, which included Raj and the other 6 engineers from Nexus Corp. The energy in the room was electric as we mapped out the next evolution of my algorithm. "This is how development meetings should be," commented Sophia, one of my former team members. At Nexus Corp, we spent half our time explaining basic concepts to executives who wouldn't listen anyway. "That's the difference between being valued and being seen as replaceable," I replied. "Here, your expertise is recognized." As we wrapped up the productive session, my assistant appeared at the door. "Dr. Chen, there's been a significant development with Nexus Corp. Their board just announced an emergency leadership change. Martin Campbell is stepping down, effective immediately." The news spread quickly. Within hours, industry publications were reporting that Nexus Corp's board had lost confidence in Martin's leadership following the patent oversight that threatened the company's flagship product. Vivian Rogers was also out, along with the head of legal who had failed to properly secure the patent. That evening, I received an unexpected email from Alexandra Winters, Nexus Corp's newly appointed interim CEO. Unlike Martin's desperate message from the previous week, this one was straightforward and respectful. Dr. Chen, congratulations on your new position. I've been brought in to help Nexus Corp navigate the current situation. I'd like to discuss a fair licensing arrangement for your patented technology. We're prepared to acknowledge your contributions publicly and make appropriate amends for the oversights of previous management. Would you be available to meet next week? I forwarded the email to Julian, adding a simple note, Phase 1 complete. His reply came quickly. Beautifully executed. The board is celebrating your first major victory for quantum dynamics. Looks like Nexus Corp is finally learning an expensive lesson about valuing innovation and innovators. 3 months after my departure from Nexus Corp, I sat on the stage at the National Technology Innovation Conference, preparing to deliver the keynote address. The audience was filled with industry leaders, technology journalists, and aspiring developers, many of whom now knew my story. And now I'm pleased to introduce our keynote speaker, the conference organizer announced, Dr. Eleanor Chen, Chief Innovation Officer at Quantum Dynamics and creator of the distributed data architecture algorithm that has revolutionized financial software across multiple industries. The applause was substantial as I approached the podium. What a difference a few months could make. Last year, I had attended this same conference as part of the Nexus Corp delegation, seated in the back, while Martin gave a presentation about his company's innovations. Thank you, I began, surveying the attentive faces. Today I want to talk about innovation, ownership, and the importance of properly valuing intellectual contributions regardless of where they come from. My presentation detailed the technical aspects of my algorithm, but also touched on the broader issues of recognition and respect in the technology sector. Without directly mentioning Nexus Corp, I emphasized the importance of companies protecting their innovators rather than seeing them as replaceable resources. Afterward, during the reception, several young women engineers approached me seeking advice and mentorship. One of them, barely 30, confided, "Your story changed how I document my work. I started keeping detailed logs of my development process on personal time." "Smart," I replied. "Your innovations deserve protection." As the evening concluded, I checked my phone to find an industry news alert. Nexus Corp had finally announced the licensing agreement with Quantum Dynamics, acknowledging me by name as the algorithm's creator. Their stock had stabilized, though at a significantly lower valuation than before my departure. 1 year to the day after being told to clean out my desk, I sat in my spacious office at Quantum Dynamics reviewing the quarterly innovation report. Under my leadership, the company had released 3 groundbreaking products built on my algorithm, capturing significant market share from Nexus Corp and other competitors. A knock at my door interrupted my analysis. It was Julian, holding a bottle of champagne and 2 glasses. "Happy anniversary," he said, setting the glasses on my desk. "The board asked me to share the news with you personally before the public announcement. Quantum Dynamics has officially surpassed Nexus Corp in market valuation for the first time in company history." I smiled, feeling not triumph but a quiet satisfaction. That's what happens when you value innovation properly. As Julian poured the champagne, my assistant delivered a sleek envelope. Inside was an invitation to speak at Women in Technology's annual Leadership Summit. The topic, Owning Your Intellectual Value, How Proper Documentation Changed an Industry. "You've become something of an icon, you know," Julian commented, noticing the invitation. The story about the executive who didn't recognize what she had until it was gone has become a cautionary tale in corporate boardrooms. Alexandra Winters, who had remained as Nexus Corp's CEO after the crisis, had implemented sweeping changes in how the company recognized and rewarded innovation. Their new policies on intellectual property protection and inventor recognition were reportedly modeled after the program I had established at Quantum Dynamics. "It was never about revenge," I said, raising my glass in a toast. "It was about recognition, about showing the industry that innovation isn't anonymous. It comes from real people who deserve real credit." "To proper recognition," Julian agreed, clinking his glass against mine. As the afternoon sun streamed through my office windows, I reflected on my journey. At 53, I had finally found what had eluded me throughout my career. Not just success, but acknowledgement. My name was now permanently attached to the algorithm that had changed an industry exactly where it belonged. 2 years after my dramatic career change, I stood in quantum dynamics' largest conference room, surrounded by my expanded innovation team. The wall-mounted screens displayed our latest quarterly results. Revenue up 43% year over year, customer acquisition exceeding projections by 37%, and our stock price at an all-time high. The data flow implementation is complete, announced Raj, now my Deputy Chief Innovation Officer. They're reporting a 67% improvement in processing speeds compared to their previous system. I nodded with satisfaction. Dataflow Systems had been one of the first companies to abandon Nexus Corp after my departure, recognizing that the original creator of the algorithm could improve upon it far better than those trying to replicate it. What's the status on the banking sector expansion? I asked, turning to Sophia, who had risen to lead our financial services division. The pilot program with First Global is exceeding expectations, Sophia replied. Their risk assessment processing time has decreased by 71%. They're ready to implement across all divisions and have already referred us to 2 other major banks. The expansion into banking represented the evolution of my original algorithm. What had begun as a breakthrough in financial software data processing had grown into a versatile architecture capable of transforming multiple industries. Each new application further cemented both my reputation and quantum dynamics market position. After the meeting concluded, Julian stopped me in the hallway. The Wall Street Journal wants to do a feature article on the algorithm revolution, as they're calling it. They specifically requested to interview you. I smiled. Tell them I'd be happy to discuss the technological impact, but I'm not interested in rehashing the Nexus Corp drama. Fair enough, Julian nodded. Though that drama is what makes the story so compelling to readers. The undervalued innovator who turned the tables on corporate short-sightedness. It resonates with people. I prefer looking forward, I replied. Speaking of which, how's the healthcare initiative progressing? Julian's eyes lit up. The research hospitals are seeing preliminary results that exceed our projections. Your algorithm's ability to process patient data while maintaining privacy protocols could revolutionize personalized medicine. That evening, I participated in a virtual mentoring session with the Women in Tech Leadership program I had helped establish the previous year. 20 promising female engineers from around the country connected to discuss challenges and opportunities in the industry. Dr. Chen, what's your advice for navigating resistance to our ideas? Asked a young developer from Seattle. Document everything, I replied without hesitation. Your innovations are valuable. Treat them that way. And remember that sometimes the right environment makes all the difference. Not every company deserves your best work. After the session, I opened my email to find a message from Alexandra Winters, still CEO of Nexus Corp. Eleanor, I wanted to congratulate you on the healthcare breakthrough. Our industry is better for having your innovations properly recognized and developed. The changes we've implemented at Nexus Corp following your departure have transformed our corporate culture. We now have a robust inventor recognition program and have doubled our retention rate for senior female engineers. Your indirect influence here continues to be significant. I appreciated Alexandra's message. Under her leadership, Nexus Corp had stabilized, though they never regained their former market dominance. Our licensing agreement had been renegotiated on more favorable terms once they acknowledged they couldn't recreate my work without astronomical costs. The next morning, I arrived early at Quantum Dynamics to find Amelia, my executive assistant, already at her desk. The Technology Innovation Board called, she informed me. They've selected you to receive the Lifetime Achievement Award at this year's conference. I paused, surprised. Lifetime achievement? I'm only 55. Amelia smiled. They specifically mentioned they wanted to recognize you while you're still actively innovating, not when you're ready to retire. The committee chair said, your algorithm has created a paradigm shift in data processing that occurs perhaps once in a generation. Later that day, during my regular one-on-one with Julian, he revealed another piece of news. The board met yesterday. they've unanimously approved the succession plan. When I step down as CEO next year, they want you to take the position. I sat back, momentarily speechless. From fired research director to CEO in 3 years, that wasn't exactly in my career plan. The best things rarely are, Julian replied. You've transformed this company. The board recognizes that your vision should guide our future. That weekend, I took a rare day off, hiking in the nearby state park to clear my head and consider the CEO offer. As I reached the summit overlook, my phone buzzed with an industry news alert. I almost ignored it, but the headline caught my eye. Nexus Corp announces strategic acquisition by global tech partners. I quickly scanned the article. After struggling to regain market position, Nexus Corp was being acquired by a larger conglomerate at a fraction of its former valuation. The announcement emphasized that the licensing agreement for my algorithm would remain in place under the new ownership. Instead of satisfaction, I felt a strange melancholy. The company where I'd spent 13 years of my career was essentially disappearing. For all their missteps and mistreatment, they had once been the platform for my work. When I returned to the office on Monday, I found an elegant envelope on my desk. Inside was a handwritten note from Alexandra Eleanor. I wanted you to hear this from me personally before the public announcement. This acquisition represents the best path forward for what remains of Nexus Corp. Your journey has inspired me to make my own bold move. I'll be launching a tech ethics consultancy focusing on intellectual property rights and equitable recognition in addition. Perhaps our paths will cross again under different circumstances. With respect and admiration, Alexandra. I placed the note in my desk drawer, reflecting on how completely the landscape had changed in just 3 years. The company that had discarded me was now itself being absorbed, while I stood at the threshold of becoming a CEO. That afternoon, I hosted a strategy session with my innovation team to discuss our 5-year roadmap. The energy in the room was electric as we mapped potential applications of my algorithm across new industries. Healthcare is just the beginning, I explained, outlining my vision. The same principles that make our architecture effective for financial data can revolutionize everything from climate science to urban planning. We're not just building software, we're creating a new approach to information processing. As the team enthusiastically expanded on various possibilities, I noticed Raj watching me with a knowing smile. What? I asked during a break. Just thinking about that last staff meeting at Nexus Corp, he replied. Remember how Martin dismissed your proposal for algorithm applications beyond financial software? He said it was unfocused and impractical. I laughed. And now, here we are, doing exactly that and watching our market value soar as a result. 1 month later, I found myself addressing the quantum dynamics all-hands meeting as Julian formally announced the leadership transition plan. 800 employees filled the company auditorium, with hundreds more joining remotely from our offices around the world. When Dr. Eleanor Chen joins us as CEO next year, Julian concluded, she'll bring not just her technical brilliance but her visionary leadership that has already transformed our company. The board and I couldn't be more confident in Quantum Dynamics' future. The applause was thunderous as I stepped to the podium, looking out at the sea of faces, many of them women and people of color I had personally championed for promotion. I felt a profound sense of purpose. Thank you for your trust, I began. 3 years ago, I walked out of another company's doors with nothing but a cardboard box of personal items and a patent that no one yet realized would change an industry. Today, I stand before you as living proof that innovation deserves recognition, that experience has value, and that sometimes the most powerful career move is simply believing in your own worth. Later that evening, I received a surprising phone call from Deborah Langley, the head of the Technology Industry Association. Eleanor, I'll get straight to the point. We're launching a major initiative to address intellectual property recognition and gender equity in tech leadership. We'd like you to chair the committee. That's a significant commitment, I observed. Why me specifically? Because you've lived it, she replied frankly. Your story resonates throughout the industry. Companies are terrified of becoming the next Nexus Corp, losing their key innovators because they failed to provide proper recognition. You've created a powerful cautionary tale that's already changing corporate behavior. After considering for a moment, I agreed. I'll do it, but with one condition: we focus on systemic solutions, not just highlighting problems. I want this to be about creating pathways forward, Absolutely, Deborah confirmed. That's exactly why we wanted you. The following week, Julian and I flew to London for meetings with potential European healthcare partners. During a dinner with the research director of a major hospital system, the conversation turned to my career journey. It must be satisfying, remarked Dr. Harriet Collins, seeing Nexus Corp's collapse after how they treated you. I considered her words carefully before responding. It's not satisfaction I feel, it's validation. What happened to Nexus Corp wasn't personal revenge. It was simply the market recognizing value accurately. They devalued innovation. The market corrected that assessment. A clinical way of describing poetic justice, Dr. Collins smiled. On our flight home, Julian showed me an advanced copy of a business school case study being published about my algorithm patent and its industry impact. You're going to be taught in MBA programs, he noted with amusement. The professor who wrote this calls it the Chen principle, the theory that intellectual capital is increasingly the determining factor in market valuation, not physical assets or even brand recognition. I laughed. I'm not sure I deserve an economic principle named after me. I was just protecting my work. That's exactly the point, Julian replied. You recognize the value of your innovation when others didn't. That insight is what's being studied. 6 months before my scheduled CEO transition, I was invited to give a TED Talk titled The Algorithm of Recognition: How Technical Innovation Drives Market Value. As I prepared my presentation, I reflected on how completely my professional life had transformed. The day of the talk, as I waited backstage, I received a text message from an unknown number. Your story gave me the courage to protect my own innovation. Thank you. It was signed simply another female engineer. That simple message affected me more deeply than all the awards and recognition. I had become not just successful, but influential, a catalyst for others to claim their rightful acknowledgement. After my talk received a standing ovation, a young journalist approached me. Dr. Chen, what would you say to story 2? Enjoy a pleasant stroll. From the driver's seat, my husband James yelled in jest, and his family laughed with him. I stood there in disbelief, one hand on my 8-month pregnant belly as their luxury SUV pulled away from the remote gas station. The blazing Florida sun beat down as I watched their taillights disappear, headed toward their beach resort vacation without me. My name is Kayla Thompson, and until that moment, I believed I understood what betrayal felt like. However, witnessing my 3-year-old husband desert his expectant wife at a remote gas station was an entirely different level of brutality. As they drove away, I could still see the grinning features of his sister Ashley, mother Diana, and sister in the back seat. It had started as a normal bathroom break during our road trip to Daytona Beach. I'd asked James to wait while I used the toilet, since walking was getting increasingly difficult in my 3rd trimester. They were all pointing at me through the car windows and laughing when I got out. They left me trapped in the sweltering heat before I could get to the car. The entire incident was observed by Tom, the proprietor of the petrol station, an elderly guy with soft eyes. He offered me a cold drink as soon as he led me into the air-conditioned store. I've got security cameras covering the whole property, he continued, his voice tight with rage. What they did? That's not correct. Sitting in his tiny office, I tried to take in the events of the previous moment. My phone was in the car, along with my handbag and everything else. All I had with me was my sundress, and I was practically stuck. I got some water and crackers from Barbara, Tom's wife, who worked in the store. Barbara said, her cheeks flushed with righteous rage. I'm calling the local news. People need to see this. Why would a guy abandon his pregnant wife to be stranded while his family laughs? This is incorrect. I ought to have tried to stop her or felt ashamed. Instead, I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. Let them call the news. Let everyone see just what type of man James Wilson actually was. As I touched my big tummy, feeling my baby daughter kick, I realized this wasn't just about me anymore. This was about shielding my kid from a household who felt brutality was humorous. In hindsight, there had been red flags regarding James and his family from the start. James seemed kinder and more sincere than his family when we first met 3 years ago at a charity gala. At Florida Values Insurance, a business that took pride in upholding traditional family values. He served as a corporate executive. I loved working with kids as a kindergarten teacher. Despite his family's tacit disapproval, we fell in love fast. and were married within a year. My mother-in-law, Diana, oversaw the esteemed Wilson Family Foundation, which planned well-known charitable functions in Jacksonville. She never failed to remind me that I wasn't quite part of their social group. She would say, "It's sweet that you work with children." She spoke in a condescending tone, though I always hoped James would marry someone more accomplished. James's sister Ashley was even worse. She had orchestrated countless social situations designed to humiliate me, like the time she invited me to a casual lunch that turned out to be a formal charity board meeting, leaving me mortified in my simple sundress among women in designer suits. She smirked and said, "Oh, I must have forgotten to mention the dress code." But James had always defended me, at least in the beginning. When I became pregnant, that changed. He seemed to have a switch flip in him. Suddenly, he started agreeing with his mother's criticism, laughing at his sister's cruel jokes and treating me like I was an embarrassment. Tom's voice brought me back to the present. "The news crew will be here in about an hour," he said, checking his phone. "And I've got the security footage ready. Shows everything clear as day." Barbara handed me another bottle of water. "Your hands are shaking, dear. When was the last time you ate?" I realized I'd missed lunch, caught up in the excitement of the trip. The trip that was supposed to be our last vacation before the baby came. James had insisted his family join us, claiming it would be good for family bonding. I should have known something was wrong when he made me sit in the back seat so his mother could sit up front. Silently, I said. He said it was because she gets carsick, but they were whispering and laughing the whole time. Barbara's face hardened. "Well, they won't be laughing when everyone sees what they did. My nephew works at Channel 7 News. Trust me, this story won't stay quiet." While waiting for the news crew, I borrowed Tom's landline to call my best friend Nicole. She'd never trusted James or his family, especially after what happened at my baby shower last month. "Kayla, thank God you're okay," Nicole answered. "You need to see what they're posting on social media right now." Tom turned his computer monitor toward me, logging into Facebook. There on James's page was a series of photos posted just 20 minutes ago. My hands shook as I read the caption. "Finally free for a relaxing family vacation. Some people just can't handle the Wilson lifestyle. Beach life. Family first." The photos showed James, Diana, and Ashley lounging by the resort pool, cocktails in hand, acting like nothing was wrong. Comments from their social circle poured in, all laughing and congratulating them on their escape. "There's more," Nicole said grimly. "Diana's foundation just announced a fundraiser for family values and responsibility next week. The hypocrisy is unreal." Tom's security footage was playing on his other monitor. I watched myself walking out of the bathroom, pregnant belly prominent as James's SUV deliberately pulled away. The sound was clear enough to pick up their laughter. "Those aren't people," Barbara muttered, watching the footage. "They're monsters." My phone was still in the car, along with my hospital bag, the bag I'd packed carefully with everything I might need. Given how close I was to my due date, the realization hit me hard. They hadn't just abandoned me. They deliberately put my baby at risk. A sharp pain shot through my abdomen. Barbara noticed immediately and grabbed my hand. "Honey, are you having contractions?" "Just Braxton Hicks," I assured her, but another pain made me gasp. "At least I think they are." Tom was already on the phone with emergency services. "Better safe than sorry," he said. "The nearest hospital is 40 minutes away." As if on cue, a local news van pulled into the parking lot. The reporter, a woman named Jennifer Parker, took one look at my condition and made an executive decision. "We're getting you to the hospital first," she said firmly. "We can do the interview there. This story isn't just about abandonment anymore. It's about endangering an unborn child." As they helped me into the news van, I saw more media vehicles approaching. Apparently, the story had already caught attention. My hands shook as another contraction hit. "This one's stronger than before. The doctors will take good care of you," Jennifer assured me, holding my hand as they drove. "And we'll make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of people the Wilsons really are." Looking out the window at the gathering media circus, I realized this had become much bigger than just me. Sometimes the worst moments in our lives lead to unexpected justice. The hospital's maternity ward became an unexpected headquarters for what was quickly turning into a viral news story. My contractions had subsided, false labor brought on by stress, the doctors said, but they wanted to keep me overnight for observation. By evening, the security footage from the gas station had hit every major news outlet in Florida. Miss S. Wilson, a nurse, said, poking her head into my room. There are more reporters asking to speak with you. Should I send them away? I was about to answer when my phone lit up. Nicole had brought it to me after retrieving it from the resort, where James and his family were staying. A staff member had found it in their room, and after seeing the news, reached out to help Kayla turn on Channel 7 now. Nicole urged, her voice urgent. They're interviewing Diana at the resort. The nurse helped me find the right channel. There was my mother-in-law, perfectly coiffed in her designer resort. We're trying to spin the story. All of this is miscommunication, Diana said smoothly to the reporter. Kayla has been very emotional lately. Pregnancy hormones, you understand? She asked for some time alone, and we respected her wishes. The reporter wasn't buying it. We have security footage showing your son and your family laughing as you drove away. Miss S. Thompson had no phone, no purse, and was 8 months pregnant in 95-degree heat. How do you explain that? Diana's composed facade cracked slightly. The footage must be misleading. Our family foundation has always stood for traditional values. The feed cut to the security video showing their SUV pulling away as they left. The audio was crystal clear. Enjoy a pleasant stroll. James's mocking voice rang out. My phone started buzzing with notifications. The Wilson Family Foundation's social media pages were being flooded with outraged comments. Their major donors were publicly withdrawing support. James's company, Florida Values Insurance, was trending on Twitter. Your story has gone national, Jennifer Parker said, walking into my room with her camera crew. People are furious. Do you want to make a statement? I thought about James and his family, probably still lounging by the pool, thinking they were untouchable. I thought about other women who might be trapped in situations with people like them. Yes, I said, sitting up straighter in the hospital bed. I want to talk about what happened. The interview was raw and honest. I described how James's behavior had changed during my pregnancy, how his family had orchestrated this vacation to humiliate me. I talked about the baby bag with my medical information that they'd driven away with, showing how little they cared about my child's safety. As I spoke, more messages flooded in. James's colleagues were publicly distancing themselves. His company's CEO had released a statement saying they were deeply concerned about the incident and would be reviewing the situation. Miss S. Thompson, Jennifer said gently, your story has struck a nerve. Women across the country are sharing similar experiences of emotional abuse and abandonment. You've started a movement. I placed my hand on my belly, feeling my daughter kick. I'm not doing this for revenge. I said to the camera, I'm doing this because no one should have to experience what I did today. And my daughter needs to know that her mother stood up to bullies, even when those bullies were family. By morning, the story had exploded beyond anything I could have imagined. Tom, the gas station owner, appeared on a national morning show, sharing how his security cameras had captured not just the abandonment, but a disturbing conversation. Before I'd come out of the bathroom, they were planning it. Tom revealed to millions of viewers. The audio picked up the mother-in-law saying, "This will teach her to embarrass our family." They were laughing about leaving a pregnant woman stranded. Who does that? Nicole rushed into my hospital room, her face flushed with news. Kayla, you need to see this. Someone leaked emails from Diana's foundation. She held up her tablet showing me internal communications from the Wilson Family Foundation. The emails revealed a calculated campaign to isolate me from James, with Diana explicitly stating that a pregnant kindergarten teacher wasn't Wilson material. But the real bombshell came from Ashley's leaked texts to James. Once the baby's born, we'll have grounds to claim she's an unfit mother. Your position at Florida Values Insurance and Mom's Foundation connections will make sure we get custody. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't just about humiliating me. They'd been planning to take my baby. Miss S. Thompson. A man in a suit appeared at my door, introducing himself as Michael Roberts, Florida Values Insurance's chief ethics officer. May I speak with you privately? After Nicole stepped out, he got straight to the point. We've terminated James's employment, effective immediately. Our company cannot be associated with someone who would endanger a pregnant woman and deliberately plan to separate a mother from her child. He handed me a folder. These are screenshots from James's company email showing he used corporate resources to research custody lawyers specializing in maternal fitness cases. We're turning everything over to your legal team. My hands shook as I read through the documents. James had been laying groundwork for months, documenting every small mistake I made, planning to use my emotional instability against me. One more thing, Michael added, his expression grave. Our HR department discovered James has a pattern of workplace harassment. Several female employees have now come forward with complaints they were previously afraid to file. This goes beyond your situation, Mrs. Thompson. You've exposed a systemic problem. As he left, Jennifer Parker returned with breaking news. Diana's largest charity partners were publicly cutting ties with the Wilson Family Foundation. The prestigious country club where they held their social events had revoked their membership. Their carefully constructed world of influence was crumbling. The resort just asked them to leave. Jennifer reported their guests were complaining about sharing space with those horrible people from the news. They're being escorted out as we speak. My phone buzzed a message from an unknown number. It was from James's assistant at Florida Values Insurance. I saved the dashcam footage from his company car. He and his mother were planning this for weeks. I couldn't stay silent anymore. I looked out my hospital window at the gathering, media crews thinking about how quickly truth can come to light. The Wilsons had planned to destroy me, but their own actions had destroyed themselves. Instead, the next day brought an unexpected visitor. James's former executive assistant, Amanda, clutching a thick folder and looking nervous. "I can't keep quiet anymore," she said, sinking into the chair beside my hospital bed. "The custody plan. It wasn't just about getting the baby. There's money involved. A lot of it." Amanda spread out documents across my bed, insurance policies, trust fund papers, and financial statements. Painted a disturbing picture. James and his family had taken out several policies related to my pregnancy, including a substantial life insurance policy I'd never known about. "They were planning to paint you as unstable," Amanda explained, her voice shaking. "The abandonment wasn't just cruelty. It was meant to provoke a stress reaction they could document. If you'd gone into labor at that gas station." The implications made me feel ill. Nicole, who had been quietly listening, spoke up. "We need to get this to the FBI. This isn't just a viral news story anymore. It's attempted insurance fraud." Jennifer Parker arrived just as we were reviewing the documents. "We need to be careful how we handle this." She advised the Wilsons still have powerful friends. They're already trying to spin this as a publicity stunt. As if on cue, my phone lit up with a notification. Diana had posted a video statement on the foundation's website, tears streaming down her perfectly made-up face. "We only wanted to protect our grandchild," she claimed. "Kayla's erratic behavior had us deeply concerned. We never meant the video cut off." As another call came in, James himself. After conferring with Jennifer and Amanda, I put it on speaker. "Kayla, baby, please," he begged, his voice. "Sweetheart, sweet, everything has gotten out of control. Let's talk privately. Work things out. Think about our daughter. She needs her father." I thought about the insurance policies, the custody plans, the calculated cruelty. "You're right, James. She does need her father, just not one who would risk her life for a financial scheme." "What are you discussing?" His voice turned sharp. "Be careful what you say, Kayla. Remember who you're dealing with." "No, James. Remember who you dealt with. A kindergarten teacher who knows how to document everything. Who has witnesses, security footage, and now your own paper trail. Who has the national media watching every move you make." The line went silent for a moment. When he spoke again, the fake sweetness was gone. "You'll regret this, my relatives. Your family is finished," I interrupted. "Check your phone. The FBI just announced an investigation into the foundation's finances. Apparently, someone sent them some very interesting documents." Amanda smiled grimly as she hung up her own phone. "The federal agents just arrived at the motel where they're staying." She reported the insurance company's fraud division is cooperating fully. I rubbed my belly, feeling my daughter kick strongly. "She's going to grow up knowing her mother stood up to bullies," I said quietly. "That's worth more than any trust fund." Jennifer's camera crew captured the moment the FBI led Diana out of the motel in handcuffs, her perfectly crafted image crumbling as she faced the consequences of her actions. Sometimes justice comes in unexpected ways. 1 week later, I sat in my hospital room cradling my newborn daughter, Lily, who had decided to make her entrance 2 weeks early. Perfectly healthy and beautiful. The TV mounted on the wall played coverage of the Wilson family's downfall. Breaking news: federal investigators have uncovered a pattern of insurance fraud at the Wilson Family Foundation. The anchor announced. Sources say the attempted exploitation of a pregnant woman was just the tip of the iceberg. The footage cut to James being led out of his lawyer's office in handcuffs, no longer the polished executive, but a desperate man facing federal charges. Diana's foundation was being dissolved, its assets frozen. Ashley's social connections had evaporated overnight. Tom and Barbara from the gas station had sent flowers, along with a note. Your daughter has a strong mother that's worth more than any fancy family name. Nicole helped me adjust Lily's blanket as we watched James's company CEO make a statement. Florida Values Insurance is establishing a fund for victims of domestic manipulation and financial abuse. The seed money comes from the bonus we withdrew from James Wilson upon his termination. I looked down at Lily, sleeping peacefully in my arms. She would grow up knowing her mother's strength, not her father's cruelty. Getting even isn't always the greatest form of retaliation. It's about breaking free and building something better from the ashes. 3 months later, I returned to my kindergarten classroom, greeted by supportive parents and administration that had stood by me throughout the ordeal. On my desk sat a framed newspaper article. Gas station abandonment case leads to new state law. The Thompson Protection Act now made it a felony to deliberately abandon a pregnant woman in dangerous conditions. Diana's crocodile tears at her sentencing hadn't swayed the judge, who cited her calculated cruelty in handing down a 5-year sentence for insurance fraud. James and Ashley faced similar consequences for their roles in the scheme. My story had become a catalyst for change. Florida Values Insurance had hired me as a consultant for their new family protection initiatives. The speaking invitations poured in women's groups, corporate ethics panels, law enforcement training sessions, but my favorite moments were still in my classroom, teaching my young students about kindness and standing up to bullies. Lily thrived, surrounded by love from my real family. Nicole, who became her godmother, Tom and Barbara, who visited regularly, and the countless strangers who had become allies. The Wilson family's social media accounts stayed silent, their once mighty influence reduced to a cautionary tale. Remember, I told a reporter who asked about my message to others? Sometimes the worst moments in our lives lead us to our greatest strength. Lily will grow up knowing that her mother didn't just survive. She helped change things for the better. Story 3. Take a look at her. She continues to play like a teenager with her small phone app. On the other side of the Thanksgiving dinner table, my sister Olivia scoffed. When will you mature and find a legitimate job, Julia? That Harris Electronics retail job isn't really a career. I sat there silently, attempting to keep my cool while my family's condemnation shattered me. I was at my folks' place on Thanksgiving evening. Just my cousin Nina, Olivia, our parents, and me. The air was heavy with the aroma of cranberry sauce and roasting turkey, but all I could sense was their contempt. My name is Julia Lee, and I'm 25 years old. I've been working at Harris Electronics for the past 3 years, while surreptitiously creating an inventory management system driven by AI. The retail job wasn't only about paying bills. Every unhappy customer encounter, inventory error, and ineffective procedure I came across helped me improve my app, and the field research was invaluable. Try telling my family that, though, my mother added, in that patronizing tone I was all too familiar with. Julia, honey. Olivia is only worried. Take a look at her. She's already a senior marketing executive at 28. All we care about is what's best for you. I tried not to smile as I read the most recent email from Apple's development team and took another look at my phone. They were thrilled with my prototype and wanted to schedule a final meeting, but I stayed silent. I had long since realized that telling my family about my goals would only lead to ridicule. Most likely, she's simply playing games once more. Olivia chuckled, grabbing a second supper roll. Do you recall last year when she mentioned learning to code? As if someone who barely made it through basic arithmetic could construct something useful. My dad gave a nod of approval. Technology is a young man's game anyhow, sweetie. Why not ask Olivia to help you land a good marketing job? I took a deep breath, pocketed my phone, and forced a grin. You're correct. Most likely I'm just wasting my time. Even though the falsehoods were unpleasant, I told myself that things will be different tomorrow. The scheduled time for the meeting with Apple executives was 9 in the morning, sharp. From the other side of the table, Nina glanced at me and winked subtly. Only she knew the truth about what was happening, and her unspoken encouragement meant the world. As my family continued their Thanksgiving meal, smiling and conversing as like they hadn't just dashed my hopes, I turned to look at them. I was reminded of all the times they had disregarded my aspirations, by the familiar aching in my chest. Long before I started working on my app, the pattern was established. Growing up in Albuquerque, I was always the weird one. As Olivia thrived in social settings and brought home flawless report cards, I was enthralled with computers and technology and would spend endless hours in my room. My dad referred to it as hiding. But through online classes and innumerable late-night debugging sessions, I was developing, learning, and teaching myself to code. Do you recall Julia's attempt to create the Mom's Book Club website? Olivia's words interrupted my train of thought. That was a catastrophe. They were unaware that my first significant coding project had been that tragedy. Even though it was awkward and had a flawed design, I learned a lot about database administration and user interface design that I used to my software later. At least she's reliable at the store, my father suggested, as though that were the greatest compliment I could receive. She is consistently on time, according to the management. I wish they were aware of that. One of the first people to endorse my app was my boss, Alice. She had personally witnessed how my technology could improve customer service, forecast sales trends, and manage inventories. She told me last week that you're solving real problems here, Julia. Nobody should be able to convince you otherwise. Nina gripped my hand as she reached beneath the table. When I showed her the prototype 3 months ago, she saw its potential right away. She muttered, low enough now that only I could hear, "They'll see eventually." As soon as my mother began to clear the dishes, I got up to assist Olivia. "Describe your recent promotion in more detail." With a proud smile, she remarked, "Yesterday, your father and I were just discussing it with the neighbors. I took dishes to the kitchen, remembering all the nights I'd worked on my app. After lengthy retail jobs, running on caffeine and resolve, the neighbors might hear about Olivia's promotion, but tomorrow they'd read about my accomplishment in the morning news." Once more, my phone buzzed. Apple staff confirms the meeting for tomorrow in another email. As I washed the dishes, I let myself grin a little. Allow people to believe that I was only a store employee with irrational aspirations. Tomorrow at this time, everything would be different. I needed some alone time after supper, so I went back to my old bedroom. The room was just how I had left it. The desk where I had written my first lines of code was still occupied by my old PC. Voices from my relatives drifted up from the living room. They occasionally mentioned my name as they laughed. I opened my laptop to study the presentation for tomorrow's meeting. When a message notification appeared, it was from Nathan, a former classmate who was now employed at the corporate headquarters of Harris Electronics. My blood ran cold after reading what I did. "You must know something, Julia. Last week, Olivia stopped by the office. She asked a lot of questions concerning your work routine and your app. Although I found it odd, as I read the rest of his message, my hands began to shake. Olivia had apparently been researching my project since she was concerned about her sister's professional decisions. She had attempted to gain access to my work computer as well. My thoughts were interrupted by a gentle rap on the door. Nina was the one. "Hello. Are you all right? After supper, you were gone in a flash." With a worried expression on her face, she sat next to me on the bed. Olivia attempted to eavesdrop on my endeavor. My voice broke a little. "She visited my place of employment. Nina. Why would she do that?" Nina's face grew serious. "Since she is aware. She thinks you're onto something huge, but she may not know the specifics. Earlier, I heard her conversing with your mother. She is concerned that you may look foolish if you show a non-professional software to real-it businesses." All of a sudden, the parts came together. My parents became more critical of my professional choices after Olivia made scathing remarks after dinner. The persistent efforts to encourage me to pursue marketing. They weren't only brushing my dreams aside, they were deliberately working to prevent me from being successful. "Take a look at this." Taking out her phone, Nina remarked. She showed me the most recent Instagram post from Olivia. "Time to help my little sister find her path" is the description for a picture taken from her workplace. Tough love is sometimes the finest kind of love for a family. My chest tightened at the disdain in those remarks. They believed they were protecting me from myself because of all the late nights I had spent honing my code, user testing, and debugging. I was viewed by my own family as a mere store employee with grandiose illusions. It still amazes me that I was going to inform them about tomorrow's Apple meeting. I whispered softly as I shut off my laptop. In fact, I was planning to tell them about my achievement. Nina gave me a shoulder squeeze. "Then, keep everyone else from knowing about it." Letting people's preconceptions backfire is sometimes the finest kind of retaliation. She was correct. The truth will be revealed to them tomorrow. Not from me, though. Silence may sometimes be more powerful than words. That night, I hardly slept at all. I can't stop thinking about the meeting tomorrow and the treachery of Olivia. With the intention of leaving before everyone else woke up, I stealthily packed my laptop and presentation materials around 6 in the morning. However, I heard noises coming from the kitchen as I slipped down the stairs. "Mom, I'm telling you, we must end this right away." Olivia's early morning voice was piercing. "Keep quiet. This app stuff is going to make Julia seem foolish. I observed the work she is doing at Harris Electronics. It's merely simple inventory management, nothing noteworthy." My heart was racing as I froze on the steps. How was she aware? My project's specifics? At the patent office, I chatted with my friend. Olivia went on. "Julia is not listed as having filed anything. Her life cannot be wasted on this dream." My mom sighed. "Perhaps we ought to give Apple's human resources a call. Alert them to the possibility that she may not live up to their expectations." Somehow, Olivia's plotting didn't hurt as much as my mother's sincere worry in her voice. They genuinely believed that they were shielding me from myself. I made my presence known by entering the kitchen. "You don't have to be concerned about making phone calls." My voice was more steady than I felt as I spoke. "I am capable of making my own career decisions." Startled by my appearance, they leaped. Olivia was the first to recover. A compassionate grin arranged itself across her face. "We're only attempting to assist your app, Julia. It's great that you're trying, but you're not a genuine developer. You must have realism." "Is it realistic?" I brought out my phone and browsed my development portfolio. "For example, I have been working on this project for 3 years, and I've been training myself to program since high school." My mother began, "Honey, Olivia is employed by legitimate firms. She is aware of their search." "No, she doesn't," I interrupted. "She works in marketing. She just viewed the store's basic UI. Thus, she doesn't know what my program does in reality. The actual mechanism is even more intricate." Olivia's grin wavered a bit. "Last week, I was just at your place of employment. I witnessed everything. I wanted you to see what you saw." Pulling myself together, I answered, "Only a tiny portion of the entire system is available in the store. You wouldn't comprehend that, though, would you? Since you didn't really inquire what I was working on since you were too busy attempting to ruin me." The kitchen fell silent. Through the window, I could see the sun rising over the Sandia Mountains, coloring the sky in tones of pink and gold. "In a few hours, everything would change. I have a meeting to get to," I remarked, turning to go. "Don't waste your time phoning Apple. They are already fully aware of my identity and capabilities." "Hold on, Julia," my mother called after me. "Where are your family? All we want is to save you from being let down." I stopped at the entrance, reminiscing about all the tutorials I'd studied and the nights I'd spent coding. Every test is performed, and every issue is fixed. They had never tried to look past their own preconceptions, so they had no clue what I was capable of. Those who believe they are defending you are often only defending their own idea of who you ought to be, I added gently. With that, I went out, leaving them standing in the kitchen. The clear, chilly morning air was full of possibilities. I wasn't going to allow anyone get in my way because I had a meeting to attend. The lobby of the Apple headquarters was intimidating. Everything is made of polished steel and glass. My phone was constantly vibrating with texts from my family while I waited for my meeting. I ignored them all, except for Nina's. They're going crazy. Olivia has spent the entire morning making calls in an attempt to ascertain the true situation. My shop manager, Alice, was waiting for me on the executive floor after I rode in a modern elevator. I stopped when I recognized her face in this strange environment. "Unexpected," she smiled as she spoke. "Did you honestly assume I was merely a store manager?" For the last year, I have been Apple's head of retail innovation, testing innovative technologies in practical environments. My mind raced, remembering all the times Alice had offered suggestions for my app, all the questions she'd asked about its capabilities. What I believed was friendly attention had been professional appraisal. "Your sister came to the store last week," Alice continued, her expression getting serious. "She claimed to be your business partner and attempted to view your development files. When that failed, she suggested you could have taken the idea from her marketing company." I could feel my face getting thinner. "What is she?" "Don't be concerned," Alice said me. "Security video of her efforts to get access to your computer is available to us. Additionally, since I first saw your prototype 6 months ago, we have been recording your development progress. The statements made by your sister are not credible. When we walked in, the conference room was already packed with executives. Despite my pounding heart, I steadied my hand and took out my laptop. This was my moment. Good morning, everyone. I started. I've been working on an AI-powered inventory system that does more than just monitor things for the last 3 years. It anticipates consumer behavior, optimizes supply networks, and adjusts to market fluctuations in real time. I could see their eyes brighten with curiosity as I explained the technique. Unlike anything else on the market, the AI was able to forecast inventory needs based on social media trends, local events, and weather patterns. "This is remarkable," remarked the chief technology officer. "Why test it in a little electronics store, though?" I grinned, since the actual issues are in retail. Working on the sales floor showed me what consumers and staff genuinely need, not what leaders assume they need. As the presentation went on, I could see their conviction growing with each feature I showed. There was stillness for a time after I finished. Finally, the CTO added, "We would like to make you an offer. Not just for the system, but also for you to collaborate with Alice as our Deputy Director of Retail Innovation." My breath caught when he scrawled the number on the whiteboard. It exceeded the annual income of my whole family. Alice added one more item. "By the next quarter, we hope to have your system up and running at every Apple store and partner retailer. Tomorrow morning, the announcement is made public." My family's shop was a franchise of Harris Electronics, one of the partner stores. My system, which they deemed unnecessary, would have to be used. My phone buzzed once more while I was signing the introductory papers. Nina sent a message. "Olivia is really freaked out. She just learned that Apple is her company's largest customer, and they're unveiling some significant retail tech acquisition tomorrow. She fears that her marketing contracts may be impacted." I forced a smile and put my phone away. Nothing could be more imminent than tomorrow. I was looking over the last acquisition documents back in my hotel room that night when my phone started ringing. Olivia had allegedly found that her marketing firm's newest project, a total retail technology upgrade for their clients, was being postponed pending a significant announcement from Apple. "Julia, we need to discuss." Read her message. "This is a severe matter. Give me a call, please." I was about to turn off my phone when it rang. Alice was the one. "I wanted to caution you," I said. She said, "Your sister's company has been attempting to obtain information on the announcement that will take place tomorrow. She is asserting that she must safeguard the interests of her family. I've already had to block 3 of her calls." I rubbed my temples and sighed. Her marketing contracts are most likely causing her anxiety. "It goes beyond that." Alice paused. "Julia, she has been claiming to have contributed to the creation of your system, claims to have contributed the key marketing idea that made it successful." My hands clenched into fists. Olivia was still attempting to claim credit for my work. A lifetime of being overshadowed by her rushed across my head. Each success faded. Every dream scorned. "There's something else you should know," Alice continued. "It's not just any Harris Electronics store, your parents' store. According to our data, it's one of their best performing locations in the Southwest. They've been utilizing that success to stop smaller franchisees from operating in the region." The realization hit me hard. They fired me from my retail job all those times. They had been making money in the same sector. They had made fun of me for working there. Once more, my phone buzzed. My father's message. "I just learned that Apple will make an announcement tomorrow. Olivia says it might affect our store. What are your knowledge on this?" Before I could react, another message came in, this time from my mother. "Honey, please tell Olivia she can help repair whatever situation you've made. She's got contacts." There was a familiar ache in my chest, but something else was there too. Willpower. They had been using their success as an excuse to undermine mine for years. Tomorrow that would end. I gave Nina a call to let her know what had happened. She said, "Your sister has been calling all the people she knows at Apple. She wants desperately to know what's going on. What about your parents? They are extremely concerned about their valuable store." "They should be." Silently, I said, "My system doesn't merely track inventories. It highlights unfair business practices, such as the way bigger franchises occasionally shut out smaller rivals." Nina was quiet for a while. "As a result, your system will identify their store as engaging in anti-competitive behavior once it launches. Indeed. I inhaled deeply. They'll have to adapt how they operate, just like every other franchise. Julia? Nina spoke quietly. Are you certain about this? Your family is involved. Families shouldn't strive to undermine each other. I answered. Besides, I'm not doing this for revenge. Because these problems harm small firms, the system identifies them. Like everyone else, my family will need to adjust. I considered tomorrow's announcement as I got ready for bed. My achievement would be shared with my family, through a public disclosure that would upend their cozy environment, not through a private discussion. Karma can occasionally manifest as a software update. I sat in Apple's press conference room on the morning of the announcement, watching the event's live feed on many screens. The CEO was explaining how retail management will be transformed by the new AI technology. Among the Harris Electronics franchise owners who were virtually attending this cutting-edge system, I noticed the surprised expressions on my family's faces. The CEO challenge was built by our new Deputy Director of Retail Innovation, Julia Lee, who spent 3 years honing it while working in retail herself. The camera feed showing the franchise meeting captured my family's reactions perfectly. My mother's coffee cup dropped from her hand. My father's face lost of color. Olivia, too. Her countenance went from surprise to terror as she comprehended the ramifications. The CEO went on to explain how the system would ensure fair market practices across all franchises. I observed my parents exchanging anxious looks, undoubtedly considering their soon-to-be exposed methods of controlling their area. Olivia's message flashed on my phone. You need to stop this now. What impact will this have on Mom and Dad's business, do you know? To my contracts for marketing? I didn't respond. Alice continued the presentation by going over the features of the system. This will be the required management system for all Harris Electronics locations starting next week, she said. There are no exceptions. I recalled all the times they had advised me to stay in retail and laughed at my small app. Retail would now remain with them in unexpected ways because I had stayed with it. In the days following the announcement, my family's carefully constructed world began to crumble. Their Harris Electronics store had to immediately alter their business strategy after being reported for a number of anti-competitive activities. As her clients moved to other agencies, Olivia's marketing company lost a number of significant contracts. With knowledge of the recently implemented store management system, my mother sent me a long email that was filled with conflicting feelings, including anxiety for their company's future, remorse at discounting my skills, and a frantic need for assistance. Dad called twice, leaving voicemails that shifted from angry accusations to humble apologies. Olivia unsurprisingly attempted a different tactic. She came up at Apple's offices, claiming she had important insights on the system's development. After Alice presented the recorded proof of her prior attempts to undermine my work, security footage showed her being gently but forcibly taken away. Nina came to see me in my new office, which now has a breathtaking view of Albuquerque's downtown. How does it feel? She pointed to my nameplate and asked. Julia Lee, Retail Innovation Deputy Director. Unreal, I acknowledged, staring out at the Sandia Mountains in the distance. But correct. My phone buzzed with another message from my parents, asking if we could meet to discuss helping them transfer to the new system. I put the phone face down on my desk and turned my attention to the future. Getting even isn't always the greatest form of retaliation. It's about letting others deal with the fallout from underestimating you and moving on.